how many different things have you paid your attention to today? And what percentage of them are actually important or even necessary to you? And what percentage of them can you hardly even remember? The truth is, the latter outweighs the former for nearly everyone who answers this question. Now, it's no mystery that we're living in an age of constant distraction and stimulus, but our life experience is shaped by what we choose to pay attention to. Minutes spent distracted turn to hours, turn to days, turn to years, and suddenly that percentage of your day, which you hardly remember, becomes the percentage of your life which you've completely forgotten. Attention is your most valuable resource. Whatever these moments where you can finally show your true self, and this allows you to shape into the person you were supposed to be. However, the modern society that we live in today gets in the way of this crucial process. Our culture increases the amount of shallow, meaningless interactions at the expense of everything else. As you might have guessed, social media is one of the main causes. At a surface level, it should have the opposite effect. Being able to instantly talk to people and form relationships wherever you are should be beneficial. It should be great for the worldwide loneliness epidemic. However, in reality, as we all know, this just serves as the mental equivalent of junk food. Social media assaults the brain with fake connections and relationships, frying your dopamine in the process. And in particular, online relationships don't let you really see the person in front of you. You can't read their body language or their facial expressions. You can't feel their physical presence and properly build an emotional connection. And these are the fundamental deficiencies that can't be solved by a webcam or a virtual hug. Now, social media does tempt us to replace our real relationships with online ones. They're easier to manage and they take little actual commitment from either party, but they rarely make you less lonely and they're not sufficient on their own. And this is a big part of how social media has driven us apart, but this is just the surface level effect. Money won't solve his loneliness, it won't solve his emptiness, and it's easy to see why Elliot is completely detached from his surroundings and spending all of his time in his own head. In fact, this character is supposed to represent all the countless other men in our real world who feel just as dissociated towards society as Elliot does. Since our modern world heavily exacerbates loneliness, there's just so much communication today that is nauseatingly fake, whether it be through impersonal relationships or phony social media discourse or predatory algorithms. With everyone so detached from reality, this is probably why a staggering 40% of young adults report feeling lonely either often or very often. Along with this jump in loneliness, there's been an upward trend of pretty much every kind of mental illness out there, all happening within just the last decade, amplified tenfold since coronavirus and the government lockdowns. And with mental health problems like this, it's no wonder why incels have become such a hot topic issue. Just look at the dwindling testosterone levels, and it's pretty clear that there is a serious issue in society. Just like so many others, Elliot lives in a hollow world. When the media talks about loneliness, it's treated like a disease. They call it the loneliness epidemic, and they use percentages and statistics to make it seem like a new sickness that's spreading across the world. I mean, nearly every article or interview mentions how it's as bad as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, phrasing it as a health crisis. But loneliness isn't an illness, it's a symptom of how the modern world interferes with the most important part of life, making deep and meaningful connections with other people. Loneliness has been sewn into the fabric of our modern world, and today's society doesn't just make people lonely, it thrives off of it. People at the top of our economy need loneliness to survive. Entirely new industries have sprung up to profit off people's isolation, because we are living in a loneliness economy. But anyone who's dealt with loneliness before knows that you can feel your loneliest when you're surrounded by friends and family. You can see and chat with hundreds of people and it won't make a difference. And the data backs this up. People who live alone in the UK are only slightly more likely to describe themselves as feeling lonely than people who live in a group setting. Because loneliness isn't about being solitude and alone. It comes from when you're not recognized as a real person. It's when every person you talk to isn't actually listening to what you're saying, they're just waiting for the next chance to speak. It takes time and effort to create a meaningful relationship with someone, and today it's even more effort to maintain it.
The body is the temple. One life, one love. Tell me this, are you prepared to live? Energy that we exchange is imperative. Intricate, so simple. Life is the spirit and the body is the temple. One life, one love.
Trust, faith, caring, rapport, friendship, compassion, the universal law when your life flashes before you.
Hello, everyone. This is Leslie Powers here with Derek Bartolatelli on Dissolving the Divide. Welcome. We have a great guest, Justice Wagman, an amazing craftsman. Derek, go ahead and share your firsthand observations of Justice's
Yeah.
craftsmanship.
Well, I do got this special little guy.
Yeah.
It's on my, little sacramental. I wouldn't call it necessarily like an altar type of thing, but yeah, a place where it's the special corner with the tarot cards and the little crystals and something to burn up if we need to clear up some negative energies and all that good stuff. Even though we can harness that power within ourselves, and what Justice has got going on at the Mystic Fire Forge. Holy smokes! Literally, I seen it to believe it, or not, or rather witness it. Because actually knowing is better than believing. But anyways, this is gonna be a really cool conversation, and you and I did a video. It was really cool that you're really open-minded, open-hearted, and just let me hang out with you for a couple hours. Hitting some metal and just talking about a lot of stuff, and just like coming together as just men with a lot of common interests, and also morals and values, and goals towards proper fucking sovereignty and that kind of stuff. So it was really cool to get to meet you and speak about a lot of stuff. And yeah, both you and I have had our issues with both sexes, I guess, just trying to maintain proper relationships with, at a platonic level with the guys and the gals, and also trying to, establish a proper relationship with, someone that, our heart literally beats for. And we're going to get into all these types of loves, especially the three, mon ami. So yeah, Justice, I'm going to let you take it away. And how you doing on this lovely Catter day?
I'm doing great.
Hope you get yours back soon, man.
Thank you. Yes. I'm doing well though. Thank you so much for inviting me on. It's an honor and a pleasure. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate, as I follow you mostly on Facebook, and really love to see your videos of you at work and the creations. I just really want to emphasize just how I think special the work you do is. And it's like an ancient, you're bringing alive an ancient, what would be a word? Craft is not the word I'm really seeking to think of, but what you're creating.
That works, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like bringing the past into the present, and I really think it deserves a lot of support. And I also notice, that you have a very deep contemplation of relational dynamics, right? And a lot of your commentary is really reflecting experiences that you've had in communities, and your observations of how people interact with each other. And so that's what brings us together today, is to talk about some of the complexities and how and getting along, right? And people's getting their needs met, and finding peaceful ways and harmonious and fulfilling ways of being in community together. And so you brought up this topic around relationships and observing some challenges in this world. And I know you're not alone in those experiences. So
Absolutely.
That's what we're going to talk about today. Yeah, the divisions in relationships. So maybe we can just start with, some of the concepts of relationships. And the Greek tends to have sort of these differentiations that in how people relate. So we'll just start out maybe by sharing some of those, like Agapé love, meaning unconditional love, referring to that understanding of how we're all interconnected as humans under one source, right? And being altruistic and seeing care and value in every living being, right? Philos,
and a love of truth.
Love of truth, yes, for Agapé. Yeah. And then Philos is like an affectionate regard, a friendship, a brotherhood, the love between friends, family members, extended family, the non-blood related family that we all seek, the tribe, right? And then Eros, which is love mostly related to romantic partnership, sexual passion, erotic love, right? And so all of these are important. And oftentimes we're in relations where we have to navigate some complexities in how they work together, or how we need to keep them apart or separated. So let's go ahead, Justice. Just share your observations and the dilemmas that you're seeing.
Well, I suppose the biggest concern I have in our culture is that we're losing the connection to Agapé, that it's sort of going by the wayside, and these other forms of love are eclipsing that form of love, and I think that's a dangerous predicament we find ourselves in, because without the foundation of Agapé, then it seems to me like those other forms of love are sort of doomed to failure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in romantic relationships, it's, if you don't have that mutual love of truth, of a higher understanding, a higher ethos, creed, etc., you're not going to be able to sustain that bond between each other. And the same goes with friendships. I mean, if you don't have that love of truth, then your friendships, I mean, are they really your friend? I mean, it's a dangerous situation if we lose touch with Agapé. And then dynamics between men, especially because, being a man, how I relate to other men, I think there is a poisoning of the idea of Philos, of brotherly love, that there's so much over sexualization in our culture that this idea of brotherly love is being poisoned by it. You'll get people saying, like, when people see you getting close to another man and you're straight, they'll poke fun at you, like, oh, like, what, you going to go see your boyfriend, or and you're like, I'm just talking with him. Like, why are you making this something that it's not? And
The innuendos. Sometimes.
Right.
Why?
Yeah. Right.
It's an interesting thing. Is there a sense of feeling threatened, by that bond between men? What is the benefit to a society, let's say, of men who are very well bonded? To me, I think about, men in, like, war soldiers, how close that brotherhood becomes, and how that is an advantage, right? To be defenders of a community. When the men are on the same page, when the men know each other deeply, when you trust each other, when you would die for each other, that creates this very protective force.
Yes. And that, I think, is at the root of where this I mean, I'm gonna play the crazy conspiracy theorist card, but I think there is an agenda to sow division between men in that way, to make to over sexualize those straight relationships, because because the control system, the government, is threatened by men having brotherhoods. You know, they want they want all of the brotherhoods of men to be sanctioned by them, whether it's in the military or some secret society or something like that. They don't want men to have those organic bonds between each other anymore.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I'd like to paint a picture of, you know, the modern day, right? Because it wasn't like that, you know, back in the days. And I love what you've studied. You know, you read a lot of books that are very profound, philosophical, mystical, or more esoteric, if you will. And, you know, what is it wasn't like that back in the days, and you know, I'm considering you kind of like a modern day Renaissance man, if you will. And it's not just because you do Renaissance fairs and all that, but you're, you know, like that
I
modern day
have a
black,
deep love of history.
yeah, like the blue collar mystic style and that kind of stuff. I love it. But anyways, so but how are young boys growing up today? I mean, I was born in '83. I was, you know, subjected to that. We had, you know, Nintendo and even Atari at the time and whatever, right? I didn't have it, you know, when I was 2 years old, but, you know, like these things came, you know, pretty early in my life. And you could see how, you know, I think that, you know, the control system and these agendas, they don't mind having, you know, young men or adolescent young boys being connected, but, you know, kind of like in an emasculated way, or just in like these you know, pseudo
Right.
connectivity ways. And like, what are we relating to these days? Pop culture, like what sports teams you like, and like all these, you know, little contrived tribal mentalities. And even like the gamer thing is like beyond belief these days, that I don't really know much about because I don't dabble into that. But you think about, you know, how many people are playing, what is it, Call of Duty or something like that, where you got teams. And so you're talking shit to a bunch of strangers, you know, and it's not just
Right.
guys, of course there's women. And so there's like all these little things that are, you know, mini divisions and stuff. And it just like creates, you know, these underlying tensions between, you know, like complete strangers, yet, you know, like they're cool with the folks that are on their side and that are gunning down the other, you know, digital soldiers or the enemy, whatever the fuck. So there's, you know, what are men getting so broski about these days? And we're gonna get into the whole brosafina, you know, situation. But you know, the commonalities of poop culture, and, you know, what movies do you like? What kind of music do you listen to? And that kind of goes hand in hand of how some of these people dress sometimes, you know what I mean? And so like, yeah, like, if they even play sports, you know, that's another thing. But, you know,
Yeah.
there are systems of, you know, like playing under certain coaches that do bring a proper fraternity amongst, you know, young men. You know, it really depends, and it's a super mixed bag. But yeah, Justice, any thoughts about that? You know, as far as like, there's so many dynamics at play today, right? And that's just
I mean, I
scratching
think
the
what you
surface.
said about
Yeah.
about men bonding over emasculated activities. I mean, like video games. It's not a real pursuit. Like, it's not a productive activity. So it's like in that sense, it is sort of emasculating.
Watching the football game from the couch and that being
Yeah.
this big male like ritual in many ways, you know, to watch the football game on Monday night. It's there's a
It's very
certain
homoerotic.
it is interesting, right? There is a need. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a man, but I have a son, and I observe like this big energy, very physical energy, right? That needs to be expressed, and it's not, and it needs to be expressed with other men, with other, you know, that, and so there's like a dance of trust, you know, in that when you wrestle, when you are teasing, playing with the edges of things, you know, and I think that becomes frightening. Maybe I'm thinking for some boys, you know, growing into men who may not be so sure what the other guy is thinking about them or how to interpret behavior from the other guy. And there's a lot of homophobia, in the midst, and, boys being kind of told not to be gay, not to be, a sissy or whatever, right? And not a lot of mentoring around sexuality and sexual feelings and how things pop up in random times, and what that means. How do you sort that out? I mean, I imagine for men that's a very challenging
Yes.
initiation process. There's no rites of passage really in modern day around that.
That is a very big problem. The over sexualization becomes a very big problem because as you do get closer to another man in a friendship capacity, you do become a target for over sexualized men who look at you and their minds are in the gutter, and they're projecting onto you that you are also in the gutter there with them. And it's
because porn is so easily, freely available all over the place as well, right? That's another horrendous dynamic at play as well.
There seems to be over, history. I mean, I look back, there seems to be a strong need among men to have men's groups of some sort, whether it's like working together, out doing physical labor, or playing on a sports team, sport together, or men's clubs, like private men's clubs. A lot of, Freemasonry was very exclusive to men. There's men's bars. Like, there's some need that represents. And I was thinking about how women, I think, in a way, through their own insecurity and their own sense of having been oppressed in our own ways, have become feeling threatened by exclusive men's clubs and men's activities, and somehow feeling like it's wrong to leave out women. And so I think I've created pressure like that's somehow bad, or and I'm kind of rethinking this because I understand I've been in that place a little bit, but that's actually not a healthy motivation. It's really comes from the lack of sisterhood. And like women, really, I think it's very healthy to create sisterhood and activities among women that relate in a different way than if you bring men into the group. That's a different kind of dynamic. And it's the same, men need their own sort of brotherhood experiences exclusive from women. And then how do we come together in community, men and women, and then navigate all of that Eros energy and that can happen, right? But I guess my question is, what, as men, I'm asking you, like, what is the need and the value and the benefit of this man to man bond and the brotherhood?
Well, I suppose the most obvious answer would be that Eros is off the table. That you're able to, in a sense, relax more with other men because there isn't this this sexual question that might be floating around. And so you're able to, a lot of the time, you're able to go a lot deeper in conversation with men because you can go straight to the Agapé. But when a woman walks into the room, it's like, for so many men, it's like they no longer care about like some higher ideal or anything. It's just like, oh, I gotta impress this woman, so the conversation becomes derailed.
It's kind of like
Derek,
the woman in the red dress Matrix sequence in the movie. You know,
yes,
just
yes,
like the slightest
exactly.
distraction could, derail, as you said, and that's nothing against the woman. It's not her fault,
Right.
right, for existing, right?
But
Right.
it can lead to women and who have and still do manipulate that so-called weakness. It's like kryptonite for a man. And I think over time, women have, especially, when you think of socially women being excluded from positions of power and things and having to find the back door to power, right? You can see it in all of the shows on kings and queens, and what the queens do to exert power. It's a very indirect energy, and it often includes exploiting the weakness of men's sexual and erotic desires, right? And often, so there is some of this, and I often think, like, for men, the greatest mastery is of their sexual energy, right? And when a man can really not let that usurp their full left and right hemisphere balance, that they're in full mastery, right? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges for men, from my observation. And it's hard for women too, because, I know I value and seek that Philos energy with men. I really enjoy being in the company of men, but don't want the pressure of being people coming on to me or crossing that boundary, right? So I want to be able to have that sense of relaxing, with women, but also with men too. And it's, so, and I think that as we're thinking about how do we create healthy communities and, maybe exit and build types of strategies, we have to be very emotionally intelligent and sexually intelligent, in a sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Your thoughts, guys?
Philos between men and women. I guess I remain undecided in my own mind about whether or not that's possible. I think you can find Agapé between men and women. I mean, when there's a higher, uniting force, a project, a business, a higher ideal you can come together and work with each other over. I find that to be a lot more healthy than, like, oh, I'm gonna go have a cup of coffee with my friend and just chat over I don't know. I don't pal around with women very well. Like,
Yeah. The one-on-one is a different dynamic than, say,
yes,
being in a mastermind group, or like you're saying, when you're in a scenario, you're interacting with a purpose, right?
yes,
That is bigger, that's unifies you all together, right? Like, I feel like I have that in this natural law community and the freedom community. I have friendships with men, like friendships with Derek. I have a friendship, it's clearly defined. It's in the same lane. We know where we stand on it, right?
right,
We each have a separate partner. Even if we didn't, that would still be a line. Like, I have that in the dance world, right? And a lot of people don't hold the boundaries, and I observe that. For example, if I have a dance partner, he's a man, he has a wife, right? For a while I didn't have a partner, but in the beginning of talking about this dance partnership, I'm like, okay, there has to be a very clear line, here
Right.
around what our roles are. What is our friendship about? You know, we have a dance partnership, and then friendship develops. And other things that happen, like, have to always come back to what is the definition and who are we? We have to keep in mind other people. I have to be very aware of his wife. He needs to keep remembering his wife. I need to be respectful of my partner. You know, he needs to be remembering and respectful of my partner, you know, and it can be challenging and tricky, but there's a kind of like a purpose, which is this dance that is meaningful to us that wouldn't exist. We couldn't have that dance partnership without those boundaries, right? And the definition and the communication. And so it's kind of like, you know, to achieve certain goals, we're going to have to learn how to cultivate that sense of agape and, I think, Philos type of familial connection. But be honest, right? And that might mean that doesn't become a relationship you text every day, or you go out and do exclusive things, you know, too much, right? But does it have to be all or nothing, you know?
Well, when Eros comes into the picture, from any of the parties involved, that's when it can no longer be. It's definitely not platonic, and that's when things get messy, because I mean, I am often in the situation where I will be erotically attracted to a woman, and I am rejected for whatever reason, and she just says, I just want to be friends, and I say, well, I can't be your friend because I still have erotic feelings for you, but for some reason that becomes like I become like the enemy at that point. It's just because I'm just being honest, and that's, I don't know.
It seems tricky, right? Because, you know, from the female perspective, it's like that's erotic energy, sexual energy tends to hijack. It has a pressure to it, an urgency almost, right? And it wants to define something quickly based on that. And I think that from a female perspective, I'm like, well, there's that, and there's all these other 10 or 12 other factors that play in to whether or not that makes sense to proceed on that, you know?
right.
And so, and there's also like, okay, maybe there's that, but I don't know about all these other things, and I need like 6 months of getting to know this person or something to really decide. And there's a pressure I feel like in our culture, and especially as a female, where men often, you know, almost it feels like there's a feeling of having to create a boundary or a wall against the man to hold off that pressure a bit longer than a man maybe wants to or expects. And so sometimes it can almost create blockades that are almost feel unnecessary, you know, or complex dynamics of frustration. And I think, you know, we're missing courtship rituals. We're missing, I don't know, you know,
Well,
like real deeper understandings of each other.
yes. When you said courtship, it made me think of the idea of a suitor. This idea of a male suitor is very lost in our culture, where they're just called friends these days. in olden times, a woman would have many male suitors vying for her attention, and it was very clear that they were romantically interested in her. But now it's, oh, he's just a friend, don't you know? Like, it's, and it becomes this point of leverage that she
Even
can use
derogatory
against.
terms, right? Like, oh, he's in the friend zone now. Oh, we got clowned,
Yep.
and like it's on YouTube all of a sudden, and it's getting fucking viral or whatever the fuck.
Right.
Or he's labeled an incel or whatever, whatever the hell
It's
these
so
things mean.
disrespectful. It's
Yeah,
part of the disrespect of men, I think.
Well, and it's
Like,
very
wow.
disrespectful if she is in a romantic relationship with another man to then say, I'm gonna go hang out with my friend when he's clearly a suitor. That's the biggest. Biggest
That
thing
does
for me.
seem like an important distinction. Honestly, I think you're bringing up something important here. Yeah. From a man's perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna share a little bit of advice, even like personal experience, because yeah, like these dynamics are interesting. Of especially if you've been in a Eros relationship. And yeah, things can get messy, especially in the beginning when you might have been hit by too many arrows by Cupid's dart or whatever, right? Arrows, y'all
Yes.
got that right? Anyway, so sometimes you got to pluck them out. It's not the right love. But first and foremost, shout out to Love Evolution, who loves to say that hey, if you ain't got love for yourself, what do you really got to give to someone else? Type of thing, right? So
Absolutely.
and I think I kind of equate agape to that generative principle of care, that comes from that heart-based intelligence, if you will, right? And then it kind of can help one cultivate that philos, like philosophia, right? Like the love for knowledge and all that good stuff. Because yeah, the philos is a pretext and suffix or prefix to a lot of words. I mean, even the PDF files, right?
Yes.
If you know what I mean with that. But we're not even going to go there on this topic, right? So as a man, what I've noticed in speaking with a good amount of females and just being in relationships, and even one of my really great friends and mentors, Mario West, uh, learning from her and having some really cool conversations, recognizing that, yeah, like on a metaphysical level, what is that energy exchange? Even telepathically, or what is the man projecting, especially if he's going to be fantasizing about whoever, right? And people that have been like dancing and doing public performances, people that have that intuitive, intelligence that's more in touch with their mind, body, emotions and all that. They can sense when there's this hypersexualization being projected upon them. And so I've really taken this into mind, especially it's helped me years ago cutting porn out of my life. I'm not having those images flashing even subconsciously, really, being able to alchemize the fuck out of that shit and like burn it the fuck away from my psyche as much as possible.
Super important.
But as far as like thinking about even some of my exes and respecting their choice to be with someone else and live apart with me, trying not to have like sexual fantasies and project that onto them in a sense, and especially with platonic relationships with any female, like even like guests that we have on the show and all that stuff, and I'm not even single anyways, by the way, but even to be more faithful to the woman I'm with in a sense, you don't want to be just letting your mind run wild. Where's the boundary?
Right.
Like Leslie, you were talking about that relationship and like where do we how do we set up these boundaries, right? Sometimes it's not obvious, but I think it really starts with the individual and their heart-based intelligence and respect for themselves. That's going to ripple out to having a lot of respect for other people and respecting their boundaries, because you honestly obviously establish proper boundaries for yourself, because you love yourself and all that good stuff, right? But yeah, anyways, like, what do you think? So I think it's like a stepwise process. In a sense, you can't have that Eros without the Agapé, almost in a sense.
Well, people often try. and that's a big problem. Because Agapé is being forgotten. But I suppose it just seems like it's really up to the individuals and their relationships with their partners about, you know, where they want to draw a line. I mean, everyone's going to have a different line about what they're comfortable with. I just want people to be more honest about who's in their lives, I guess. And because they've forgotten about Agapé and Philos and Eros and all these other forms of love, it's harder for them to be honest because they don't remember these dynamics. And so the lines get blurred in their minds about who they are relating to.
What you're saying really does, it validates what Derek's saying about it there being an internal job to do first, right? Your inner work and knowing yourself, right? And your vulnerabilities, your weaknesses, your desires, your pleasures, those kinds of things, you know, and what is your boundary? What is your I see definition and boundaries being somewhat similar in that I think there is a need to define relationships and not just everything be loosey-goosey, you know, just follow your pleasure, just whatever feels good, you know, kind
That's
of.
very in vogue these days.
Yeah. And without there being a principle guiding that or a respect for the impact, the consequences of crossing lines and being loosey-goosey with your energy. It's like, Derek, you brought up, I think a really key point about energetic boundaries and the power of our visualization in our mind, right? Because, you know, if we allow ourselves just to go off in fantasy land with our friend's spouse or something, you know, that's not a good practice, right? You know, we have to keep the boundaries and the definitions in our own mind because our mind is powerful, our visualization is powerful, that the associations between what we picture and what physiologically gets associated with that. You know, we're creating neural networks and pathways that connect erotic energy with a certain stimulus, a person, that then gets harder and harder. And like you said, Derek, that energy gets transmitted. It's felt, if not by, you know, maybe like the person themselves doesn't feel it, your partner would feel it. They'll see it, you know?
Sure.
So I feel like there's a big responsibility when it comes to managing this energy. I think the erotic energy is powerful. It's a creative force. It's and it can be misused. It can be sloppily expressed, right? And then we have all these relational discord that then gets in the way of harmony and cooperation, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, to bring it back to you know, same-sex relating friendships, I mean, when that projection of Eros onto, you know, straight relationships, friendships, I mean, it can be a very destructive force. It's I go to these festivals and you know, after hours, you know, I just want to relax and, you know, hang out. And, you know, if there's women around, I want to flirt, but sometimes I just want to like sit in a circle with some men and, you know, smoke a spliff or whatever. And then the projections come out like, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you like chasing a woman, like what are you gay? Like, it's like, no, I'm just trying to find a higher ideal here. Like, I'm there might not be a woman around who I'm very interested in, but it's this over sexualization that it's like these men, they it's like they can't fathom the idea that I just want to talk to them. I don't know. Do you have?
It seems to be kind of like, these social expectations and social conditioning in a lot of flavors, right? And I think a lot of people are, they rely on, once again, like poop culture. And, when you try to have more like philosophical, meaning, profound conversations, they haven't really dipped their toes past the shallow part. So they can't really get that deep, like kind of literally almost, right?
Yeah, out come the fart jokes. Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, they're just like shooting the shit, playing some pool with some folks, that's always kind of cool for me, like, yeah. Yeah, why is there always, because again, like the social conditioning is conditioning a lot of people to be operating from their lower senses, like the below the belt thinking. So of course the guy's gonna be like, hey, what's up with the girls, that kind of stuff, or like, right, as soon as there's some beauty walking through, there's going to be some gawking or whatever the hell, because they just can't keep that shit in check sometimes. I seen that with coworkers this summer, working at a place, there's beautiful women all around, and for a guy trying to like keep his shit in check, like I really just want to, as best as I can, like just objectively admire the beauty, because I do find women to be the most beautiful creatures that walk on this earth, like whatever, like and just have gratitude towards that, and I have a lot of appreciation for the woman that I'm with, because she's just really gorgeous, and that divine feminine, and all that good stuff, right?
Yeah. So what does it take? Like, what do you think the skills are that it takes to be able to maneuver and navigate this complex social dynamic?
Well, I think mastering sexual energy is a very important part of it. Because that tends to, because when that's not mastered, there's that burning desire that's just going to eclipse, whatever other kind of dynamic is going on. If you are, pursuing some kind of higher ideal in a conversation with somebody, and then somebody whose mind is in the gutter walks in, and they just derail the conversation, steer it back towards something base, and
yeah, it's like, not watching the objectification around sexuality, right? To, being aware of that, and to shift from Eros to Philos, or Agapé, is being like honest, right? Honest about the truth of the chemistry, right? The dynamic.
Right.
Being able to put it in check, put it in its own place, and opening up to, seeing people as more than just erotic beings, but, seeing each other as complex mind, body, spirit systems, coming back to that and learning to master, one's own sexual energy. And also, I think, knowing, like, I think a lot of times, especially for women, really seek validation of their beauty, validation of their attractiveness, will often dress up in certain ways to get male attention, but maybe not really want, but maybe that's all they want, is to get noticed, and to get validated, but really then don't want to give it anymore, so I think that's confusing maybe for men? And is it
It
really
can be
a
very
know,
confusing. Yeah.
friendship that women are seeking? Probably not really, more wanting to be seen and, given the kudos for their beauty, and we all need to be really aware of that, and when we give a message, is it a mixed message? Is it a clear message? Are we being honest with ourselves? Are we being honest with that person? I think there a lot of things are not talked about. People are evasive. People avoid bringing up potentially uncomfortable topics, afraid of hurting the other person, and so then you don't say stuff. Then
Yes.
things are unclear, right?
I
All
mean,
sorts of
personally, I've witnessed a lot of this dynamic of women wanting to keep their options open when they are in a romantic relationship, and then they will say, well, I'm just going to go hang out with my platonic friend late at night in his tent at the Renaissance Fair all alone. Like, it's, I don't know. It's just, there's a lot of potential for abuse of that term, platonic. It's
Yeah, I think to define boundaries, I think it's really kind of establishing where you are in life, how you feel about yourself, and even like the other person to a degree, and also laying down not the law, but if you want to get into that natty law, that's what it's about, and what I'm alluding to in regards to objective, morality and having proper values and ethics and loyalty, honesty. Is that said person, true to their word? Are they trying to live a righteous, dignified life and not trying to swindle other people because they understand, kind of karma or the law of attraction, even, and what they're trying to magnetize or repel and influence, the cause and effect favorably in their, lives and for others as well. Because hey, like whatever goes around comes around. So if they're going to be projecting negative stuff, are they going to be lying? Are they going to be thieving or whatever, doing whatever the hell behind anyone's back? Like, it's like also the relationship one has with the universe, because the universe is going to be that mirror coming right back at you at whatever rates, right? Because these things aren't always in real time or whatever, right? So
right.
yeah, when people are in tune with that and you recognize that with other people, I think that really establishes proper relationships, like whether it be platonic or have potential for something else, right?
Yeah. I think that, that it comes back to internal awareness and noticing the divisions within yourself, because I think a lot of people live with dissonance, where they are maybe saying and doing one thing over here and then saying and doing something else over there, and somehow justifying or creating a wall of
Sure.
denial, looking at denial or minimizing. Oh, like my platonic friend, yeah, it's okay if I hang out for hours alone and drink
Right.
and smoke or whatever. And, and there's a denial there. There has to be on some level of whether or not it's how it affects another person, or allowing slippery slopes, and then, oh, whoops, it was an accident, it just happened, didn't mean it. Like, chaos happens.
Right.
So it's natural law plays in here. If you're disconnected inside yourself, if you're not aligned fully, then you are going to make choices that then lead to chaos because they're not honest. Like you were saying, Justice, in the beginning, in a way, it's like, if I can't say I'm going to be your friend, because that's really not being honest, because I have this erotic energy that is not about just friendship, right? So I'm going to be honest about that, and I'm going to make my decisions based on that truth, as opposed to like, okay, I'll just be like your puppy, and
Yeah.
I don't know, like hang out with you you know, in the hopes that maybe someday I'll get lucky with you, you know,
Right.
or
Well,
you'll change your
and that
mind.
is a strategy a lot of men use, where
Yeah.
I mean, the more time you spend with someone, I mean, the more likely it is that Eros will enter the equation at some point, especially if you're connected on an Agapé level with them. It's, I mean, don't you think? I mean, it's like, it's sort of like a logical.
Yeah, like
In
if
a way,
I,
like,
Totally.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
know that the
How are you
dynamic
gonna
is there,
take it away with that though?
so if you know that that dynamic is there of sexual energy, and you just keep tempting, you know, keep, you know, inviting, like if I was a female and I, you know, have a man who's vulnerable to me, and I just keep like hanging out with him, that's unfair, right? That's,
right.
it's and it eventually would probably lead to the man getting trying to take advantage, you know, not necessarily take advantage, but like look for an opening or be confused about the
Yeah,
messages I'm giving.
probably try to make a move at some point.
Right, and
And
make a move, which then I could
yeah,
get all offended about, you know, but really I'm setting up the situation, you know, and it's sort of, we have to be honest. And I think you're pointing out that there's sort of a, maybe even more in the younger, you know, generation, but where it's very loosey goosey and a bit dishonest around the realities here.
Because they're not
well,
based on certain, you know, eternal axioms of truth, you know, that is, you know, aligned with agape. And justice, to kind of confirm what you're talking about, you know, I've experienced this of just, you know, that heart-based intelligence, holistic living, like it just naturally occurs, you know, and like there is no like this, you know, these stigmatisms on like, oh, the dating scene and all this stuff, that like that shit doesn't exist in my life. You know, folks into trans surfing might understand, you know, just kind of waltzing my way in and out of the matrix in regards to like just trying to find a partner, or not even, because, you know, just working that law of attraction and just uh rippling out that love for self, and like uh you can be projecting the type of partner that you want to have that's going to reach you at that level or frequency, right? And so
right.
here along comes whoever, because the universe kind of breezes on by and might romance you if you're, you know, in line with certain things, right? It's a beautiful thing when you're really in line with the divine, man. Shit, just had to
It
say that
is.
one time, but yeah.
Justice, I'm curious, like what are the common dynamics that you're witnessing, you know, especially in your kind of generation, that you feel like are off base and making it hard to find true solid
Well,
relationship?
I think things are. I feel like young women have more leverage over men than they have ever had because of dating apps, because of social media. I mean, it is. I mean, they are just being showered with attention constantly, and it makes it very hard to stand out as a young man. I mean, um, the the age of marriage is keeps the average age of marriage keeps increasing. I mean, I think it's at like almost 30 now or something. It's where it used to be a lot younger, and it's because in order to stand out to a younger woman, you have to be established in a, you know, you have to have all your ducks in a row, so to speak.
Like the
And
666, right? Six-figure
right,
income, 6 feet
right.
tall, and
Yeah.
I forget whatever the sixth thing is, but yeah.
Damn, that sounds
Six
satanic.
inches, six figures, 6 feet. Uh, but it's, you know, most young men, I mean, they're not materially established, and with the economy the way it is, it money is so much more at the forefront of of erotic relationships these days. It seems to be more about a business transaction between people rather than a genuine love of truth.
Yeah, because we're not in, we're still in some pretty draconian times, and for those that aren't really aware of that, like, I mean, folks that are kind of aware of these things don't want to be with someone that's going to be falling for Hegelian dialectics and things that we cover on the show that are polarizing people, away from themselves and other people, and really being able to, establish proper friendships and fraternity, and keep the family dynamic strong. Whether you're, the son or daughter of, your elders, or you have seeds that you're raising on your own, right?
Right.
It almost feels like culturally a passive aggression going on, like a rebound of, well, a part of that dark feminism, and the unholy feminine really comes from a deep hostility and resentment towards men as represented in the patriarchy, right? And this sort of sense of women needing to like claim their freedom, claim their independence, their power, but it being turned into this dark, kind of ugly way of manipulating men or discounting or diminishing men. And I think that that's part of what men are, good men. Like there's a lot of good, well-intentioned men, that are not being seen or are getting put into this overarching category of the patriarchy, if you're white and male, right? And I think that's really a hard place to come out of, and isn't seen. It's not talked about enough. And
Right.
then the men sometimes are going to their opposite extreme of like the MGTOW, and having bitterness towards the women.
Yes.
So we run a risk here of real polarization, even more so than we have now.
Absolutely. All by design, all social engineering.
Yeah. And so part of my thinking is that the friendships, like coming back to Agapé and the Philos between men and women seems important, like to get to know each other from a very open-minded, curious, compassionate viewpoint, to put aside our biases, to figure out what they are, our woundings. I have wounds from relationships with men and anger that I've had to work through, right? And so that's my responsibility, to figure that out in myself, to not have biases and prejudice and stereotypes, and to not just judge a book by its cover,
What did you do? Some kind of shadow work or something, Leslie?
Oh my God, yeah.
Good
We
on
have
you.
to go to the fire.
Yeah, sure. Didn't mean to
And talk to each other, like these conversations, the communication piece from a place of respect, mutual.
One big problem I've noticed is being a single man. It's sort of like you almost feel like you're in debt in a way. Like there's this like social debt you have, where it's like the more time you spend single, the harder it is to actually like find someone, as well as like to find friendships. Like if you spend a lot of time alone, it's harder to cultivate a friendship with somebody else, because it's like there's like this subconscious fear of the stranger in that runs rampant, where Well, so like oftentimes, if I do have friendships with another man who is in a relationship with someone, they tend to keep me at arm's length a little bit, and that might be, insecurity on their part, or something like that. But
it's not because you got a stock hold of knives and stuff.
Maybe.
Just kidding.
But there's this. I mean, I think there is like a natural protective dynamic of men to be protective of their romantic partners, but it's I don't know, it's
You mind if
I don't know if what I'm noticing is a natural dynamic or if it's exacerbated by our culture.
Yeah, I think it's that too, and the malignant side of it also of just people's over insecurities on things, and that could be part of the social conditioning as well, and all that stuff,
Right.
and just like it could be a projection of whatever there is going on within themselves, right? We take it back to shadow work. It's not just a joke, right? It's actual work to do, and that inner work is to get over the hump and work through the animus and these things, as far as how you were raised and all that stuff. But just to throw an extra layer on just like any kind of like building any kind of relationship, it's just different from the days of old when you had to memorize telephone numbers and all these things, and people today seem just more isolated, even though we're more connected or have so many different ways to be connected more than ever, even though we are. But it's just like the digital reality is taken over so much, and I think people losing touch of just like proper relationship dynamics in the real world. So there's like this digital spillover in a sense, or like too much influence, or people getting too hooked on these things, and it could be at like that metaphysical level as well, I guess. All these things kind of transpire, or you know what I mean. I'm not going to redundant again.
The thought came in my head that we're missing some of those social forums that I imagine from the past. Like, for example, I think of the dances, the old-fashioned dances. Maybe in English the Breton dances, or the line dances, that bring people together, couples together. You're interacting, you're changing partners. Those old balls where people would go in, and there was a certain protocol. I keep coming back to dance. Like, dance to me in the healthy social dance world, it has clearly established sort of protocol and boundaries that are very respectful, that allow it to work. If I go to a social dance, if it's a healthy environment, there's not people coming on to each other. There's, the respectful, I hand you my arm to go out and dance. Thank you, separate. There's just like social rules in a sense, that keep the clarity, but allow some of that natural enjoyment of male and female energy sharing, and maybe a little even flirtation that is within a social boundary of okayness in the context, but that allows.
It's certainly a great way to meet someone. Our culture doesn't have meeting places like that anymore. I mean, you can go to a bar, but
that's all that's really available for young people, or festivals, right? And then it tends to be more loosey goosey, and especially like the new agey kind of ones,
or church, right?
Or church, right?
Yeah, but if folks can build whatever, meetup.com. It has so much potential. People can throw out the idea and, things could be more established. And if, folks chip in, who are members, to meet up and like pay for a specific, venue that can be rented out or whatever, even just like some space and some open fields or, whatever's clever. There's a lot of possibilities, and those things do exist. But yeah, I don't know. Have you guys noticed that, there's so much more like compartmentalization, and with the algorithms on the digital platforms and stuff, there's so many niches and niches within niches that, all these echo chambers, it's hard to like get a more macrocosmic unification, or even like, within communities sometimes, like even, you see either on dating sites or whatever, like folks are swipe happy with whatever, of just like, oh, they don't agree with this one thing, so I don't even want to know them, type of thing.
Right.
So it's like, where do we go from there? Like, honestly, like that's not how it used to be in the old days. You would, have to deal with, someone's bullshit. And I think that helps people,
And you might not find
hold
out
people
about
accountable
it.
as proper brothers would and should, right? So we can see and hold each other large, so we can, build each other up instead of tear each other down like some crabs in the bucket or whatever the fuck it. But
Right.
What were you saying there, Justice?
Oh, I was just gonna say, you might not find out about those things you don't like until, years down the line, maybe. Whereas now it's like it's all on display on social media. So, I mean, people's threshold for differences is very low. There's also this social media dynamic where it's like everyone expects like so much from a potential romantic partner, because you flip open Instagram and you just see like all of these like super beautiful people, or people with the big fancy cars and mansions, and just doing like all of this, all of these things that are sort of unrealistic when it comes to the average person. And it creates this dynamic of, well, why aren't you a millionaire? Or,
Well, it's that 666. It's all material
Right.
and superficial, and missing the deeper, value-based kind of what's important to connect you. And that's the agape, and that's the truth, and the higher purpose, which we can all be connected through. And, people then are dealing though with their own like loneliness and their own desire for a partner, or to develop maybe someone to build a life with that gives a sense of purpose, because if you're alone, the idea of buying, having a home is very different than if you're running a home with a partner, or you have a community. So there's this dealing with loneliness, and finding healthy forums to meet people, right? And certain social protocols to navigate the dynamics, right? In honest ways, right? We're missing it. We're missing it in our society. We leave our teenagers, they have to figure it out on their own,
Yep.
Yeah. 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 I love you. I love your necklace, by the way. That it's just
Thank you.
like standing out.
Co-love rock.
you made that,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, I left mine at my friend's house, actually. It's a good old Ankh that
Oh, yes.
I bought from you. Yeah. Quality stuff. And yeah, like honestly, there's something more to be whole in this, like literally, like just the feeling of it's more earthy. It's just more authentic. You know, it doesn't have that made in China
Thank you.
plastic feel of, obviously, you know. Like,
Definitely not.
yeah, yeah. Speaking of material stuff, but yeah. Also,
Well, yeah. I mean, oftentimes I feel like I have a perception online of, where people think I'm all about the material, and it's really not the case. I try to, I at least try to make things, to make the material reflect the spiritual, which I think we're sort of losing touch with as a culture. Like, I have this thought in my head sometimes. It's like, it's the metal and the message. Like, it's how can I make the metal reflect the message?
yeah, I think you kind of delved into that a little bit in the video that.
And I also post a lot of like my business accomplishments and stuff, because I don't, it was so, there was a lot of temptation in my life growing up to be a communist, to be a socialist. I mean, that is sort of the culture where I'm from, is like these, you know, mama's boys who just grow up, and they well, they don't grow up. That's the problem, is they turn into socialists growing up, and I guess I'm sort of eager to show the world that, like, no, like, you can make something of your life still. You can be self-determining. So, but I guess we're getting off topic.
No, not at all, because this ties into exactly what I wanted to, you know, go back to in regards to social media and all this stuff. Because, you know, I mean, it sucks because, you know, to like do this sacred work and this and that, you don't want to be like, it kind of feels weird sometimes, or even like counterintuitive to be all like in the marketing stuff and like promoting your things. Sometimes, like, it ain't about me. You're trying to make a living off of it first and foremost, and that, but you're not like monetary driven like a lot of other people are. And on social media, with these influencers or whatever, you know, a lot of folks are into the whole fake it to make it type of stuff, and that kind of also is a reflection of, like, to a lot lesser degree, of just how you see a lot of people have this, you know, false veneer of what they actually show publicly about themselves, and they want to show the best version of themselves all the time. So you don't really see like the realness behind, who they possibly actually are, what they look like, you know, at their, you know, high, or not, ain't gonna be like the lowest of the low points, but you know what I mean, right? So what version
Right.
are
Well,
you
I'm certainly
mostly
not going
seeing
to
from
like
people, right?
reveal all of my like chinks in my armor and weaknesses on social media, where the haters can, you know, come in and exploit it.
I have a question, because I think there is like about what people value, this question of what people value. And I feel like what your calling is kind of a sacred calling of this craft of working with fire in the forge and metal work. And you're literally, working with elements in very basic ways, it's very, they're symbolic on so many levels, but it
Yes.
doesn't necessarily fit the social ideal of many women, the way they're, being like trained to look for the six figure, the person who's out, doing work that is, I don't know, like you're working with this material, it's this powerful thing, and yet it's not valued in the way that maybe other things are. And how does that even play into this dynamic of relationship? And, what is your observation and experience with that?
I feel like I'm attractive to a lot of women on a like women like the idea of me more than they like the reality of me, because it's like, oh, he's an artist, he's a blacksmith, look at him doing that, it's so cool. But then it's, oh, he's living in a shack on the side of the highway, like, it's
To do the sacred masculine work in this world, this society doesn't bring the material wealth, the trappings of that, the appearance of it, right, in the way that most of our culture values.
I've also rejected the idea of ever getting licensed to, build anything, and that most society just doesn't understand that. They think I'm trying to swindle them or something, when it's just about a principle of like, no, I'm not going to ask the government permission to do something I know how to do. It's
the dilemma of the anarchist, the effort to live purely, and authentically, which is a very admirable quality, and I would say maybe a masculine quality, to hold on to that creator. You are the creator here, and it creates dilemmas in the world of social relations.
It's a dilemma between being authentic and virtuous compared to providing. It's there's a lot of tension there in my life.
Damn, yeah. That kind of reminds me of, and I've built some really cool relationships with the folks in the local farmers market, like just like supporting the local producers. And, they're kind of in the same boat as a lot of folks. And, some of the folks that I frequent, instead of like paying the 5,000 euro government official approved of, the GMO free, or well, that too, but just like certified organic, you have to pay, 5,000 and go over the process. And a lot of folks have been more old school, and like it, back in the days when, before all the mass pesticides and all that, they just called it regular food. They didn't have to label it something like organic, right? Because it's like food used to just be food and not adulterated and all this stuff. But so they would just, call their stuff, they're not allowed to call it, legally organic. They would just call it raisonnable or something like that, responsable, and it just correlates to just it's just reasonable farming, and they're just trying to sidestep some of the state stuff. So folks can kind of have relationships with people like that within the community. I feel we don't always have to be on the internet. And I think farmers markets and like the Renaissance fairs and all these gatherings, festivals, those are great ways to meet folks around and like establish better connections. I feel
absolutely
in the local environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's also the piece of coming back to the value system of what do people value and how that relates to relationship, because there needs to be an agreement of valuing the authentic person and the authentic relationship, and how that relates to choices that an individual makes related to the government, related to how they make their money, and who you work for. And so when seeking relationship, if you don't have that foundation of agreement, then there's going to be a mismatch. There's going to be a tension. Right. So that it's like Mark Passio will say, a relationship really is about two people facing the same direction and going together towards that, as opposed to just focusing on that like erotic or that just the
focusing on each other. It's
in truth, right?
Right.
We're aligning to that most.
And do you think that people think like that at all in average land?
I think the idea of Agapé is, people have never heard of it. It's a travesty.
Oh, I got a more specific question, and this hits home literally, but not like in a like the metaphorical way, whatever. Because I used to live, where you're from, Corvallis, and you've seen a lot of,
Yes.
kind of to categorize, not to devise, but like the left. It seems more left leaning than anything,
Oh,
right? Quite liberal.
oh yeah.
So maybe like your views, you might be seen as like a white supremacist, right? Oh, and he's single
Oh,
too. Watch out, ladies!
absolutely.
Like
I am
these labels are
persona
ridiculous
non
sometimes.
grata in
But
Corvallis.
no, I totally
I don't
forgot
know.
the question. But
I wear I wear symbols that are considered Aryan, but I not because I'm a white supremacist, but because I don't want to be another self-deprecating white man, which is everyone I grew up around pretty much. These men who think that if they just make themselves smaller and smaller and smaller that they're gonna get respect or something, but it's just not.
Can you expand on that, please? Yeah, that trend you're seeing.
Well, the leftist man in general is a very emasculated creature. They are
are they white knighting the granny state or the nanny state?
oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's like, and I used to be one. I used to go to protests and stuff in Portland. I went to college in Portland for a year, and I just thought, like, if I hooted and hollered for the for feminist ideology and for socialism, that would make me more attractive to women. But it ended up, I mean, I was able to foster some relationships, some romantic relationships with women that way for a while, but eventually it got me sort of trampled on. It was like there was this building resentment of me, of being this pushover, this white knight, this someone who will just do whatever she says.
Kind of like the nice guy finish last archetype in a sense.
Right. Well, it was like initially it got me rewarded, but then to sustain a long-term relationship where you start to sort of like you start to want to like settle down more with that person, instead of like going out to parties every weekend and stuff, and like you want to be more insular. That's when like the lack of respect started to show in the relationship, where I started to notice it more.
Huh. With you and the woman directly, or you and like your friends?
Me and the woman, it was like I mean, these hardcore feminist women do not, they do not respect men being masculine, at least on a well, it's like they do and they don't, because
They see a
they're
power
very
struggle or
confused.
whatever.
Like they say they want a feminist man, but then it's like their underlying unconscious programming tells them, no, go find a masculine man.
Yeah, and also it's kind of going against that hermetic principle of gender, like as far as what they're looking for, or in, you know, what reality would actually be, because, you know, they would be like, if you're looking for a emasculated man, they're going to be the more masculine dominant person in that relationship sometimes, right?
Right.
I think it's like the women themselves have an inner contradiction. You know, it's like superficially they're thinking they need to, you know, like claim this independence, this like, I don't need a man and men need to serve me and take care of me. But then if a man is too much of a pushover over time, yeah, you're right. Like, it's like that's not attractive to a
Right.
woman. It's like because then you can feel like I can walk all over this man. That doesn't create a sense of like respect or safety. You know, it's
No,
like you really
it's
need
the
a man
opposite.
who's going to be able to push back and know who he is and his boundary, and you know, when he's not allow himself to be walked on, and to, you know, and I think that is what creates the true polarity, like the proper polarity is, you know,
Absolutely.
it's an
But
interesting like
it's so hard
confusion.
these days, because when a man does stand up for himself, when he does assert himself to his
Toxic
woman,
masculinity. No.
well, and she has a whole slew of male contacts who will immediately validate her point of view if she decides to share it that with them. It's just yeah, it's
White knighting it.
It sounds super frustrating, and and it is, you know. And I just think you know, I think if enough men stand their ground and maybe not, you know, start to withdraw affection or attention for some of that toxic feminine behavior, you know,
yep.
that may help. I don't know. It's like that magnetism ultimately should work itself out if people stop trying to falsely, like, fit into false things, you know, false boxes.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna bring it back, Justice. I remembered, you know, in Corvallis, you know, I noticed, you know, like there's a good amount of folks, you know, into some spirituality to whatever degree, but you know, as we all are aware of, that, you know, the new age, new cage, you know, stuff
Yeah.
is prevalent in places like that, and it's really leaves people at, you know, in these cul-de-sacs. And so they might have an idea of agape, but they might not have, you know, had that proper streetwise spirituality teachings, you know, and just kind of more into the woo woo
Yes.
stuff, as if, you know, like if you're gonna love someone, are you gonna love them, you know, in all their spectrums of emotional expressions and all that stuff, or how's
Well,
that gonna work out, and what kind of space are you gonna hold for that, or no, I don't know, a lot of stuff. Sorry, go for it.
no, what you said there is great, because like when I pull up a definition of agape on Google, it says like universal love or unconditional love, right? But it doesn't say the love of truth, which is where the new age gets so messed up. It's, you know, they're just peddling solipsism at the end of the day. I mean, Corvallis is full of solipsists. I mean, members of my own family who think they're, you know, being spiritual, but they're just falling into the solipsism trap. It's
I remember, I think when I first became aware of your posts on Facebook, I think what caught my attention was you were reflecting on the prevalence of nonviolent communication in the kind of new age communities, and how in a way that has become a trap for what I'm kind of relating to now is masculine communication. And
yes.
and maybe speak on that and maybe how that plays into this whole dynamic.
It's sort of like the new age on steroids in a way. It's like taking it to the next level, and it is sort of there is a lot of evidence to say that it is a a CIA mind control program. But I was living at this hippie commune east of Eugene for 8 months or something like that with an ex of mine, and it was. I mean, so nonviolent communication it's all about how you feel, and it makes this rule that you're no longer allowed to make any kind of inference about a situation. You're not allowed to like put two and two together. You have to say only the like facts that are very obvious are allowed to be spoken of. You can't I mean, it's been a while since I've thought about it, but basically it takes like logic out of the dynamic, and it makes everything about feelings. Like you're only allowed to talk about in terms of how things make you feel, rather than. And the whole idea of judgment is totally demonized. And judgment and discernment, people like to make distinctions between discernment and judgment, but it's really, at the end of the day, they're sort of the same thing. And so if you're not allowed to use discernment and judgment, that is your sword of masculine reason. And if you don't have that, then then you are in a totally feminized environment, and it's
I think that must relate to the idea of boundaries too, and making stands, taking a stand on principles or on, behavior, or calling out someone who's violating a boundary or a principle. It's kind of makes it more about it's my feeling that and my needs aren't met, as opposed to there really being a kind of a structure, a bottom line of what's right and wrong, or someone claiming. I think, there's, like with most things, there's some good woven in there, but there's also like a cap where it blocks you from full expression and full truth, right? And so if we're in this culture where, either people are overly harsh and ad hominem attacking and, overly polarized, it seems like it's either in that extreme or it's in this loosey-goosey, like, this is my truth. Oops, where'd it go?
All right, sorry, we got internet just you're on your phone, and yeah, these things can get a little too mucho caliente. But anyways, so we got to wrap this up, unfortunately, pretty soon. So I guess I don't know if we should do like any kind of overview, any other points that you wanted to touch back on, or finish the flow of where you were trying to go, anything like that.
Gosh, I know I'm gonna think of like expanding points later. It's just kind of how my brain works. It's like one thing leads to the next, and there's just like always more to expand upon, it seems. But
well, I got something we kind of chewed the fat on a little bit in regards to just kind of like phony, shallow friendships, and this, the bro movement, or like just like everything is like bro, and all this stuff, and like the gym bros or whatever, and there's like a weird egregore, if you will, or pendulum in regards to like this little cultural influence of this stuff. And in like, I don't know, it's like, are you gonna really, have these lifelong friends, sharing blunts and beer, that kind of stuff?
Right.
You could take it to that kind of thing, and just, yeah. So how can we like build more profound relationships? And yeah, I know this is like gonna be like an overgeneralization or whatever, but yeah, just like not, even taking it further with coworkers, whatever, right? Just being there for a brother man, like not just a little broski woski, like fair weather friend type of thing, if you will.
Right. Yeah. Definitely you need some kind of higher ideal, at least some kind of activity that you share over, drinking and smoking. It's, I mean, most of the guys I grew up with, that's what we did. And, I've pretty much lost touch with all of them. And it's because there wasn't that Agapé bond.
Yeah. And maybe a lot of people haven't even done enough self-work to know what they really are passionate about and what is important, right, to hold on to. And I think that's the first place to start, right, is, a shallow psychology will ultimately lead to shallow relationships, right?
Right.
Superficial material-based conversations and focus is not going to create depth of intimacy in any type of relationship. And even, whether it's friendship or romantic relationship or sexual connection, I think that we are a society that's overly shallow and superficial. And that's what's destroying, the Agapé and the Philos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I did remember one thing I wanted to talk about, but it's sort of a big topic.
It's all good.
I mean, like the effect of the Kunda buffer serpent, the infernal sexual energy. I feel like that is really at the root of these gender identity crises that we're seeing so much of. I mean, I've been witness to, I have had friends who I grew up around who have transitioned, and they were often the biggest, porn watchers. And I feel like it's a very taboo thing to talk about. But this idea that like, oh, well, I was born this way. I think it is more of a conditioned phenomena than a like a born with it sort of thing. I don't know. Do you agree? Disagree?
Hey, Lane, we can just see these things playing out in the relationship dynamics, and just like how many friendships have been lost over that. Like someone's transitioning, and they might not get the support, or they might just feel more safe with the LGBT community, whatever, that kind of stuff. So we can see those dynamics being played out as well. And yeah, it's just another layer of the social conditioning of, we see the effects from their causes, right? Are these the natural evolution of human beings? Yeah, I don't think so. And like something's kind of in the water and in the air, and the elements have been pretty toxic for way too fucking long, kind of shit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a complex interplay between what is natural and what is unnatural, and that is putting pressure and messaging into people's mind. And when people are vulnerable or feel different, outcasted, shamed, for whatever, aspect of themselves that is different, or, there's people who are really suffering, in this confusion and seeking a tribe, seeking an identity, seeking a place to belong, seeking a way to feel aligned, and it gets very confusing. And I feel like a lot of the social engineering right now is taking advantage of that and offering kind of a false solution, or it's like the Wizard of Oz, let's go to Oz, the land where we'll have all our answers, right? If you just follow this yellow brick road. And so they're putting people on these paths and politically and socially, like, creating an illusion of something that isn't necessarily based in everyday the lives of people, but it's like a mirage, that's going to be a solution. And then, it's just like, that fantasy of a solution. Then you get there and you realize that it's really not what it was built up to be, and that it's a lot more complex. It's like John Kabat-Zinn has a book, Wherever You Go, There You Are, right? So wherever you go and however you change your body and however you label yourself, right, or whatever, isn't going to be the answer. Because the unhealed parts of you and the immature parts are still going to go with you.
Right.
So it's complex. Yeah.
It's the same as the grass is always greener on the other side, right? People are going
Right.
to there, whatever, but they haven't, lit up that heart anahata chakra, green, chakra.
Yeah.
And yeah, you made me think of the root chakra just a second ago, Justice, when you kind of started that bit, how like the root cause of something possibly, and yeah, the root chakra kind of going to, they set the.
Do you
the
think it is over sexualization, like a too much of expelling the life force and it creating some kind of like it twisting you up inside, sort of a phenomena. It's just a theory I have, but
It's interesting. It's worth like exploring. And I think what I've noticed is, people really seeking a sense of where they belong, and
well, there's definitely that too.
yeah. And, and I think just a lack of, again, I see that our culture, our world is very ignorant of psychology and ignorant of healthy coping tools and strategies for dealing with feelings. There's a lot of people who feel outcasted and don't know how to deal with that, and there's not a place for people. There's not a real depth of education around sexuality or sexual energy or
Right.
hermetic principles, that really would allow a very wide range of individual expression, and differences and diversity of where people choose to express on this polarity of gender, and not have all of these uptight kind of judgments and polarizations, right? So anytime, and so it's almost, the way I see it is this irony that people are seeking to be accepted and to find themselves, but they're doing it by becoming polarized and changing themselves, right? And there's a lack of real self-knowledge and self-love and self-acceptance and a real desire to lead and a distrust of nature, right?
Yes. Our natural,
yeah.
Our natural
Of how
expression
you're born, of the wisdom of somehow who you are, with all of your contradictions and differences. And, like I think people get very confused about that, fall into this sort of scientism and false medical solution. We've got the answer for you, you know.
Well, and
So
the culture reinforces it. The culture supports this confusion
yeah,
so much, and I think we do them a big disservice in that, especially, I mean, especially in regards to the truth. I mean, that's the biggest thing when it comes to this issue for me. It's like, it's a matter of truth and lies. Like, are you living a lie? Are you living in the truth, or are you living a lie? And I mean, it is a slippery slope if we start to tell them that it's okay to lie about who they are. That can then spill over into other aspects of our lives.
yeah. Yeah, and I just think that people are very confused, and this spills over into hetero relationships too. And, you know, I hear a lot of stories about, you know, people who get married and are with a partner, have kids, and then come to a conclusion that they're attracted to the other gender, and families are destroyed, and all these situations are not handled well. There's a lot of confusion. So I think, you know, that we all need to kind of do our inner work, right, at the bottom line of this, and really get clear on who we are and the what we want, what we seek, where our strengths and weaknesses are, and then really seek an openness to understanding others in an authentic way. Learn communication skills, learn to be honest, and you know, and not give up, right? I don't think the answer here is to give up on each other, or give up on relationships, or, you know, just give up on the opposite gender, right? You know,
Right.
but to keep facing the barriers inside that have been created through relationship disappointments and being betrayed, or whatever it might be. We have to keep working on ourselves around that to open the door to try again, right? To have hard conversations and communication with other people, to be accepting of others' imperfections.
Yeah.
You know, we have a lot of work for us, but it's worth it, you know, from my vantage point. Yeah.
It's absolutely worth it to fight the good fight. I mean, keep staying persistent and communicating the truth. That's really all we can do. but it's worth it to do that rather than to throw your hands up and say, I give up. I mean, that's not a life I would want to live. Anyways.
And with friendships or communities or potential romantic partnerships, like, I think we just need to keep being resilient, you know, and sort of shake stuff off and find our power, right, to keep sort of forging forward, you know, with our authentic self, not compromise too much, but also not be too rigid. You know, it's quite the dance. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially during these days of digital dilemma, and which has created, you know, through social media, and, you know, everyone has, well, not everyone, but yeah, a lot of people have, you know, hundreds of friends or followers or whatever, and a good portion of people get, you know, whatever kind of ego inflation of a false variety, if you will. And so, you know, it seems like, you know, and with the technology and all this stuff, it's so easy to just, you know, block someone or say something and not really get held accountable because you could just ignore them or yada yada, or, you know, just unfriend, right? So it's like
Right.
a lot of disposable relationships. Sorry for the noise, but
It's okay.
I think this is just, something to keep in mind, and to like just stay human, and recognize, hey, we all have our shortcomings possibly, or imperfections and this and that. That can be tolerable, especially if people are honest, with themselves and others, and they can hold that, redemption within themselves, and they're not playing the victim card and projecting that kind of stuff out as well. Which kind of, Leslie, you kind of alluded to just a minute ago, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm going to have to pop off here, off the call, but Justice,
Okay.
any things that you want to say? You guys can keep talking if you want.
I mean, it was great to be on with both of you. Like I said, I probably could expand more on all of these topics, but it's just wonderful to get to do this. I hope we can talk again soon.
Yeah, I think it's a real important topic, and it brings up, personal. We all have our personal experiences and opinions, right? And I think encouraging these honest conversations, and also just like having compassion for each other, and the challenge of finding relationships, the desire that we all have for that, and the difficulty, the frustrations of that. And I think it's getting harder in a lot of ways in this world to find authentic, deep relationships.
Yes.
And especially those based on truth and Agapé. And so let's just, I guess, just be honest and true about that. It's a hard world, Yeah.
Honesty is key.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you bringing this topic to the table, Justice.
Of course.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So
sorry
thanks
about the technical glitches.
No worries.
We work it out. So we're not live.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much, and thank you, listeners. Share input, share your comments.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Leslie, if you want to take off, I just wanted to get Justice to plug in which way folks can get a hold of you as well, and Leslie, bon soiree. Ciao. Have a great day.
Take care, Justice.
Take care. Yeah, so if you want to support my work, if you want to purchase any metal work from me, sculptures, jewelry, weapons, things of that nature, I've got some new labradorite pendants here, some rings, silver rings, got a nice kitchen knife made from a chainsaw blade, and the list goes on. But you can go to mysticfireforge.com. I have a new website up there. You can get a hold of me there. You can go to my Etsy shop, Mystic Fire Forge on Etsy.
Okay, cool. Because this is what the QR code puts.
Is that what that is? Is that for me?
Yeah.
Oh, cool, man. Thank you.
Hell yeah, brother. But I didn't know you had a website. That's cool. mysticfireforge.com or .org.
Yeah, it's just a WordPress site. There's no shop on it or anything, but I can cut you a deal if you circumvent Etsy. So or find me on Instagram or Facebook. Instagram, it's Firehammer11. Facebook, it's Justice Wagman. So yeah.
Oh yeah, brother. Yeah, and I'll drop a link for all that and the video that we did together as well, so you can see some live footage of Justice in action. Because
yes,
yeah,
do more of that, I guess.
Yeah.
More live footage.
Totally. Yeah. It was really cool hanging out with you, and again, great chatting with you tonight. Yeah, people could put out a whole podcast series on this topic alone.
Totally.
So it's hard to do justice for the topics at hand sometimes, but I'm just glad to get it in, my friend. So yeah, Much love to you out there in beautiful Oregon. I love that place. You know, it's really beautiful.
Likewise to you in France, man. Swords, spears, axes, and more! Come peruse the dragon's hoard! And also dusty tomes of ancient lore.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh shit, dude. I don't know. There's so many choices I want to choose from, dude. Oh shit.
Take your time.
Wow. And yeah. There's a fire agate. Some kind of ring.
New fire agate ring.
Yeah. It reminded me of a ring that Mario West got from you.
Very similar style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the band, that's silver or?
Yeah, sterling silver.
Ooh la la. Holy shit.
You better hope that the
That's so cool.
the feather of truth is as heavy as a steel feather.
Yeah. Right.
You know,
Yeah.
It's the Kali Yuga, so.
Weighing your heart
Truth is
against.
heavy.
Fuck yeah, man. Wow, that's so beautiful.
Divide and conquer, that's a model, this role model, but doesn't go with what's inside my soul, so I don't follow. I walk my own path and keep my own pace and feel great when I relate to people in the same state. Divide and conquer, that's the model, this role model, that doesn't go with what's inside my soul, so I don't follow. I walk my own path and keep my own pace and feel great when I relate to people in the same state.